What is going on? Today we are talking about squats. Squats are an awesome way to improve muscle mass, decrease fat, and improve your overall quality of life. Some have even gone so far as to say that squatting is the fountain of youth. I don't really know about that, but let's dive in and find out how we can make squats work for you. Now, a lot of people struggle with squats and there can be a lot of confusion about squats. What's the right form? What's the best technique to do in various scenarios? So we're gonna break all of that down, but first we need to go over the anatomy of a squat. First things first, let's talk about muscles. First and foremost are the quads, short for the quadriceps. Quadriceps meaning that there are four muscles. Now, the first muscle we'll go over, the vastus medialis, starts from the inside of the knee, roughly, and then travels up and slightly more centerline to the thigh. Number two, the vastus lateralis. It's on the outside of the thigh and it travels upward and ends close to the hip, but it doesn't cross the hip joint. Number three is the rectus femoris. This one is interesting because it crosses the knee joint and it crosses the hip joint. So not only does it push the leg to be straight, it also flexes the hip and pulls the leg upward. Finally, number four is the vastus intermedius. This one lies just deep, just underneath the rectus femoris. But again, this one, like the vastus medialis and lateralis, only acts on the knee joint. It does not act on the hip joint. Now, I'm sure there's probably going to be someone out there that says, "But Brad, it's all about the glutes." And you're partially right. But there are so many other muscles that are involved. We're just starting with the quads. Don't worry. Now, come with me. Let's move on. The glutes. Well, basically, they move from the top of your pelvis down around the pelvis and then onto the femur. They also attach into the IT band, so they can perform some other functions, but their main function, the primary function of the glute max muscle is to move you from hip flexion, like this, into hip extension, to push the hips to be straight. Number three, the back muscles, specifically the erector spinae muscles that pull you into a straight vertical position. Yes, obviously the quads that straighten your knee and the glutes that straighten your hip out are very, very crucial for the squat, but you cannot neglect your back muscles if you're hoping to improve your squat. If you want a successful squat, but you feel like your back is holding you back, then keep watching. But just understand that as we squat down, our back muscles need to maintain and support our trunk so that we don't collapse. Number four, the abdominals. These work in harmony with the back to create a brace that helps you produce more force through the trunk and then subsequently through your lower extremities, through your thighs, your ankles, your knees, etc. Finally, number five, the calf muscles, specifically the soleus and the gastroc. Those are the two that assist in a squat. Now, as the knee moves further into flexion, you will get less benefit from the gastrocnemius, which is the main calf muscle that you see on most people. However, the soleus is still highly activated when you are in the bottom of a squat. So, if it's something that you're lacking, you can always try working on improving the range of motion at your ankle. And this can be done either by stretching for prolonged periods of time, or it can be done by working the calf muscle through the range of motion where you feel that tightness. Now, there are gonna be some people out there that say, "Well, Brad, I thought that the squats also worked hamstrings." You're wrong. That's all. Those are the muscles on the back of your thigh. Really, in the squat movement, there isn't enough of a change in length of that muscle in order to elicit any type of strength gains or hypertrophy gains to your hamstrings. Okay, so now you have a basic understanding of the muscles that are involved in the squat, and that is great. But we need to apply this knowledge to your squat. I'm sure you've seen a million tips and tricks videos about how to fix your squat. We are gonna keep it so simple so that by the time you are done with this video, you can immediately go and get your perfect squat. First things first, foot placement. Generally speaking, your feet should be placed between hip and shoulder width apart. This can vary a little bit, like let's say you're doing powerlifting. In powerlifting, you typically want a much wider stance and the feet turned out slightly more. For most other types of lifting or just body weight squats, typically you just need to stay between the hip and shoulder width, and that will be pretty comfortable for you. If you need to take a wider stance, like in powerlifting, by all means do it. If you need a more narrow stance, by all means do it. You are an individual and you need to do what works for you. There is no perfect squat form that will work for every single person. So once you've found what feels to be a comfortable width for your feet, all you're going to do is think about dropping your hips straight down. Once your hips are down, you're gonna think about bringing your hips back up. Think about returning to a full standing position where your hips, knees, and feet are all back to neutral. Now, the general standard is that you want to get your hips and your knees parallel to each other so that your femur is parallel to the floor. That is a fine goal to work toward, but if you cannot get there right away, it's fine. Depending on the length of your femur, the length of your tibia, the length of your torso, the length of your feet, you may have a radically different squat from someone else. You may have more lean forward with your trunk. You may have a more upright trunk. There are many different postures that someone can assume to do a squat, but it all depends on how it feels for you. So the next time you hear someone say chest up during a squat, they could be wrong. That may not be what you need. Maybe you need to bring your chest down a little bit more. The main goal for squatting or any movement for exercise is that it's pain-free and that it's effective for you. Now, unless you have a super specific reason to do something like quarter squats, maybe you're training for some type of explosive activity or something like that, I would try to get close to your full range of motion whenever possible. It's great for your joints, it's great for your ligaments, it's great for your muscles. If you're doing a body weight squat, a nice thing to do is utilize your arms as a counterbalance at the bottom of your squat. Now, let's talk about wedges. Okay, not these wedges, but these wedges. These wedges are really cool, specifically because I can take them apart and I have various angles to work with. I have a shallow angle, a medium angle, and I can combine them for a steeper angle. The great thing about using a wedge like this is it provides you a lot of flexibility in your training. Let's say you're someone that wants to get down into a really deep squat. With a wedge, you can artificially lengthen your tibia, and that proportionally shortens your femur. So the relative size changes, and it typically allows you to sink down deeper into a squat. Now, if you can already sink all the way down, don't worry about using something like this. But don't be afraid to put a small plate under your heels or buy a wedge, or if you can afford it, buy a pair of nice lifting shoes because those have built-in wedges that can allow you to sink down just a little bit deeper. But I want to know, what difficulties do you have in your squat? What are some of the issues that I can help you address? Let me know down in the comments. I will be happy to make a video just for you. By the way, if you want some wedges, not these wedges, dang. Like I was saying, if you want some of these wedges, I'll put a link down in the description. It doesn't cost you anything extra if you buy them, but it does help the channel out. Now, make sure you like and subscribe. Peace.